Everyone, and welcome to this very special Midnight Movie Club supplemental. I'm joined today by the great Adrian Esposito, director of films like Special Needs Revolt and Clowns in the Woods. But we're here today to talk specifically about Special Needs Revolt, a film that Robert and I personally really loved. And we're so excited to get a chance to speak with the man himself. So, first thing I gotta ask is, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good.
That's good to hear. I like your Troma shirt that you're wearing.
Yeah.
So you mostly come from a documentary filmmaking background. You previously made about nine of them, all focusing on kind of people with disabilities. But then I noticed you did kind of a pivot to more narrative film. So what caused that shift?
Well, I just felt that it was time to expand. It was time to move away from just doing documentaries and I felt I was before when I was doing documentaries, I don't think I had the resources somewhat and supports to do them. So I felt, I got to do it while I'm still a little young. These at least narrative films,
Yeah.
start break away and move on from doing documentaries. I mean, I did do one more documentary, which is on Troma now, the streaming site called Nickel City Tinseltown, which is about the Buffalo, New York film community
Mhm.
and how it just grew and blossomed. So, but actually co-directed that one with Kurt Markham, who's another filmmaker and
Okay.
colleague of mine.
Yeah, because your kind of upbringing was in the roots of the small time New York, like indie filmmaking scene. Is that right?
Right.
Okay. Excellent. So, in regards to Special Needs Revolt, I want you to kind of take me through a day of filming that movie. What were some challenges that you run into, or any particularly funny on-set stories that you'd like to share?
Well, I'll start out with the funny story. The one day I enjoyed the most, which was the funnest, was we were at Erie Beach. It was, in on Angola, New York, and we were filming this scene that was with Manatee Lover and his fantasy scene where he saves the manatee that's on the beach and then brings her, Dana, into the water and they make out under the sea. So that was the most fun day because if you buy the Blu-ray, which is coming out soon, and the DVD, I explain in the PWD's The Darkness documentary that with the behind the scenes footage that the Arlo Price who was playing Manatee Lover, his wardrobe was malfunctioning in the water in the beach, and then he was just struggling, even though it might have not been so funny for him. It was funny for the rest, my cameraman
Yeah.
and another, Nolan, who was there helping out that day, who played Billy Bates. We were just really having a blast and laughing a lot with how that shoot went.
That's excellent. And that's something I kind of wanted to bring up as well. A lot of the characters in this movie have very unique kind of traits. They're like promiscuous or a little bit impish, even. They have some quirks about them. And I gotta ask, was that kind of the actor's input, or was that something that you wrote into the script?
Well, I wrote the script in 2016, and then Bill Whedon came along, who played President Kruger. I showed him the script, and he added more stuff in there to make it more of a feature. And then Kurt Markham came along, and he wrote in the script, added some more stuff in there to kind of even things out. And also, even though he's not credited, he didn't want to be credited. Mike Boas, who's my teacher and he's an editing and filmmaking assistant, he kind of went in there and added a little bit of what he wanted, flavor of what he wanted in the movie. But yeah, the script was pretty short when I wrote the first draft, and then when Kurt, Bill Whedon, and somewhat Mike Boas came along, they kind of made it into a 93-page script,
Mhm.
and made it a feature, and gave some depth into the different characters, if I think I could say.
Okay, awesome. So I've noticed that you're kind of a jack of all trades when with each of your movies. You write, direct, and you edit all of your movies. So I have to know, as an editor myself, I have to know what part of the process is your favorite and which part do you dislike the most?
um I would say my favorite part about editing is basically, putting the film together like a rough cut. The real, let me think how to put this. The real frustration or pain in the butt about it is having to wait for, visual, especially visual effects to get finished.
Oh yeah.
Um, you know, what else? Audio stuff, but mostly it's visual effects and trying to fix mistakes with in Adobe After Effects and stuff like that to make it presentable. So it's and also the musical score is also waiting for that can be
Yeah.
proved to be a bit of a challenge. So I would say those are the aspects that are a challenge for during editing, post production.
Okay. And talking about the score part, I do really like the score of this movie. Was that kind of the last piece of the puzzle of this film, or how soon in advance did you get it? Like, did you know the score of the movie?
Some of the score came from someone that was suggested to me who lives around the Western New York area. Daniel Sprague, like the metal, heavy metal guitar sounds.
Yep.
I gave him some examples of what I wanted this scene in that song or whatever to sound like Korn, the band Korn. So I gave it to him, and then he scored it. Just sort of similar, sounding the same, and the rest of the music that wasn't like heavy metal or rock and roll was this musician, and yeah, he's a musician from not Amherst, though. What's that place called? Well, but I'll just say Buffalo, New York. I forget the
Okay.
suburb he's in, and he lives out in the suburbs of Buffalo, New York, and he's very wealthy. And
Huh.
luckily, his name is Armand John Petrie. He's done scores for other films, mostly filmmaker Greg Lamberson's films, who's in Buffalo too, a local guy, and he uh look. I lucked out with Armand because he did the score basically for nothing,
Okay.
and I thought he did a great job. When we premiered the film, some of the music he hadn't finished or hadn't done yet, so there was like temp tracks in there, like for example, Manatee Lover. I had the John Williams Superman like music in where he's saving the Dana the Dugong or whatever, the
Okay.
manatee. Rips his shirt. So I wish I could have used the John Williams, but it would have been very expensive and
Of
cost
course.
thousands to have used
Yeah.
that. But it would have been nice, but because it was more funny, I thought. But
Yeah, you
yeah,
typically tend to enjoy the film with the temp tracks a little bit and just kind of like wishful thinking that you can get those. I'm imagining that scene now in my head with John Williams' score, and I gotta say it sounds pretty perfect.
yeah, from the 1978 Superman movie. Yeah.
Yep. This film features a lot of people with disabilities, and I wanted to ask you, does working with them present any kind of unique challenges that the average person might not think about?
Yes. For the main character, Nolan Tears, who has Down syndrome, as an accommodation, just working with him previously on the film Clowns in the Woods, I knew I had to have cue cards, written dialogue for him as an accommodation. because it was very difficult for him to remember lines,
Hmm.
especially with the speech he gave at the podium at the Donville Town Square. I had to basically he had to read them off a cue card, and then while we were still rolling, I flipped the paper over, and that's why, just trivia. You see different shots of the crew, B-roll of the crowd members, from the townspeople of Donville, and
Hmm.
each when he's talking in between, lines, sentences, I should say.
Yeah.
So that was a challenge, but we overcame it. Because, like I said, it's with some people with Down syndrome, that just has to be an accommodation, the cue cards. So
Yeah, definitely. And I will say we'll get to him a little bit later because I have some questions about Nolan Tears, but I gotta say, Billy Badass is just such a great character. We quote him all the time, and his speech at the end was just a cherry on top of a perfect film for us. So you take really good care in ensuring that people with disabilities are represented in a very realistic and inclusive way. I really appreciated how, they were just people. They had flaws, they had, character quirks about them. Is this kind of your mission statement over at Espocinema? Is this something that you make sure that you get right with all your movies?
yeah, I try to have like a social commentary, especially a message about, people with disabilities, not being greater or less than everybody else, that they're equal and not treated like they're beneath or they're put on a pedestal or whatever. So yeah, I that is basically where the core message of my film company is, and also my self advocacy work is to include people with disabilities in films that the average John Doe wouldn't think of to have them in. That won't
Yeah.
meet won't meet the status quo. Like for this one, it was basically a trauma film. I wanted it
Yes.
to be a trauma type movie, and there's another film. It isn't even in post production. I mean, pre production yet. It's called Down of the Dead. I didn't come up with that idea. It's basically a disability zombie film that's a parody of Dawn of the Dead, set at a drive-in movie theater, and then there's a barn in the countryside on some, in some farm
Yeah.
land. And that film was my teacher, special makeup effects teacher John Vincent's idea. He actually did some of the effects for Special Needs Revolt, like the manatee,
Okay.
that he brings to the water, and the cave. Well, I helped out. I helped build it with him. Johnny Espry's secret layer, the cave, and but that's another film. Hopefully, will get made this year. He said he's trying to get the funding. He's gotten the fund. He's gotten some investors. So hopefully that follows through. Um, that should be a unique film if it gets made. It's Yeah, like I said before, it wasn't my idea. He came up with it,
Yeah.
and I have another idea for a film. I already wrote the story treatment for it. I just have to write the script called Special Needs Campfire Stories, which would be like a horror anthology movie.
Oh, that sounds great.
Yeah. I mean, the problem with filmmaking, especially these days, is getting the financing and the funding.
Yeah.
It was easy back in the 90s and 80s to get financing for your movies, but like I've heard, it's almost impossible to get it nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, you hear about even some of the greats like Martin Scorsese, struggles with finding financing for his movies. I notice you
Hmm.
tend to do through Kickstarter. Have you found a lot of success on that platform, or is it still kind of overcoming these hurdles?
I tried Kickstarter, I didn't reach my goal. Then I tried Indiegogo, and I got some of the money. I got like, I think 4 or 3 thousand or something, and around a little bit of the thousands, and the rest I had to finance myself, and my mom, who is co-owner of Espocinema. It's like a mom and son run business.
Oh, that's awesome.
She put she put in some of the money. She put in some money, her money too, along with me. So yeah, it was. We had some, but we decided to do that because we had an investor who from Rochester, New York, where I live, and where some of the filming production took place in. He said, "Oh, I'll give you $2,000 for starters." He did that, and then he came around and says, "I can't give you any more money." Blah blah blah, making
Yeah.
up some excuses, and he was a really pretty rich guy. He owned Galaxy West Studio, which is no longer in existence, and I mean, at least he let me film there for free, but it was just frustrating and irritating. And then, that we couldn't get the more money from him, but then we got we basically like I said, we financed it ourselves because, at least we don't have to owe people any money,
Yeah.
investors. We
That's
don't.
always good.
So that was the good thing from it, but
Yeah.
it really hurt our wallets. Financial
Yeah,
time.
I bet. And hopefully you guys start making some pretty good returns because you guys got
Mm,
some gems for sure that you've made. I particularly really love the trauma influence that's pretty obvious throughout. I mean, Billy Badass wears a Toxic Avenger shirt for the whole
yeah.
movie, and you got the man, the myth, the legend himself, Lloyd Kaufman, in your movie. So I just have to know how did that happen? How'd you manage to get him in there?
Um, I basically asked him, and he knows me because I did a documentary about him in Trauma Entertainment back in 2017 called "Greetings from Traumaville," because that's a saying he always said in his videos. "Oh, greetings from Traumaville.
Yep.
I'm Lloyd Kaufman." So I just decided I thought it would be cool to have him as just the breaking the fourth wall, having him in the film, doing that, and he agreed to it. He had a film crew film him at his penthouse in New York City, and with his own film crew, and I think it turned out well with having him in there, and especially Bill Whedon, who was in Sergeant Kabuki Man NYPD. He did a fantastic job, in my opinion, playing President Kruger.
Yes, he really did. He was a standout.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I gotta ask about Fart Bomb. He's one of our favorite characters, and he has one of the best scenes where he kills all of President Kruger's goons. There's a pretty obvious pro wrestling kind of influence throughout the film. I gotta ask, are you a big fan of professional wrestling?
Yeah, I like the older stuff.
Okay.
I watch it. I haven't seen any of the newer stuff, like I know of it. I know what's going on. I just don't. I mean, I tried watching a few AEW matches on streaming, and it's just that there's so much other content out there that I haven't gotten really into watching the newer stuff. But back in the stuff from the '90s and early 2000s, that's when I watched it. So yeah, I would say I'm a wrestling fan,
Okay.
and
If you can you give me your top five from that era? Your favorite wrestlers?
of course, Mick Foley, The Undertaker. I really liked Stone Cold Steve Austin, and I'm trying to think. Oh yeah, The Big Show. I really liked
You
him.
have a poster in the movie. You
Yeah,
guys have a poster of
yeah.
him.
When he went by the Giant in WCW,
Yep.
and I'm trying to think who's what other rest. Oh, Sting. I really like Sting too.
Okay. Those are all really great choices. You know what's up. So yeah, very clearly, is that actor that you chose, is he an indie wrestler of some kind, or is he just like a really buff actor that you found?
He's actually in real life a bodybuilder. His name is Mark Williams, and he had acted in a previous film with me and Eugene Bowfill, who played Sheriff David in the film, who was involved in the car chase scene that you saw Billy's car blow up in, and
Yeah.
flip in the air. I met both of them on the set of Greg Lamberson's Guns of Eden, which is on Tubi, and I have a small part in that film. and he he used to do pro wrestling when he was younger a little bit, and he knows it. And his son, I think, I don't quote me on this, but I think one of his older sons is doing pro wrestling school. That's where we filmed the wrestling stuff at.
Okay.
The ring was at a wrestling school that was actually in Eastern Hills Mall in Buffalo, and Eastern Hills Mall doesn't exist anymore. It's been torn down in Buffalo, unfortunately,
Oh,
and so that and another shopping mall in Amherst, the suburb of Buffalo, is gone. It's like they're disappearing fast. These shopping malls,
yeah. Different
but
era.
yeah, he was good to work with. He's a wrestling fan too, of course. So
I wanted to ask about Billy Badass, aka Nolan Pierce, who is wonderful in this movie. And I've noticed that you worked with him on both of your non-documentary feature films. What's the story on how you guys met?
I met Nolan Pierce through someone who was supposed to play the brother of Dalton Lettuce character Marcus in Special Needs. I mean, in not special. Clowns in the Woods.
Hmm.
This actor, I forget his name now. He originally was going to do it, and he basically couldn't do it. And then he told me about someone he knows who's an actor with Down syndrome in Massachusetts, because they're both from Massachusetts. And I gave him an audition, and because I was looking for someone to play a smaller character, Dan in Clowns in the Woods. And he basically I was going to use somebody else, but then I saw Nolan how he was delivering the lines, and I picked him, and I thought
Yeah.
he did good, and we developed a rapport, a friendship. And I thought he would be perfect for Special Needs Revolt as Billy Badass, because his parents are all for it. He seemed gung ho after reading the script, and he seemed like the perfect person to do it.
Yeah. He's great. His comedic timing is just impeccable. I love the way that he delivers some of his lines. So I'm glad that he ultimately got the part. Um, the next question here is Special Needs Revolt has some really, really great special effects. I love kind of B movie special effects where you can clearly see the process in making them. You've said before that one of your earliest influences was the original Dawn of the Dead. So the good thing I got to know is, do you come from the Tom Savini kind of school of special effects, or are you more of a digital kind of guy?
It depends. I kind of like both. You know, I feel that it would, like, for example, I really wish with for example, the new Michael Jackson movie I saw, they didn't use. You could tell it was a computer generated chimp, and I wish they could have just gotten either a real chimp, maybe it would have been too dangerous, or just done something with a puppet.
Okay.
So, but um, I think relying too heavily on digital and computer effects can be a blessing, but it can work against you too, especially I know that it's kind of put people out of business, just like, Pixar put 2D animation kind of out of business at
Yeah.
Disney and other places. So yeah, it's kind of, I don't know. I really wish practical effects could be mixed in with a little bit of digital, when you're doing films. Like, I know there were a lot of practical makeup effects in The Lord of the Rings, and then when they did The Hobbit, which isn't as popular as Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings,
Yep.
that they used more CG, which I don't know. I think it's, I don't know, phony. I mean,
That's a good word for it.
real phony, but
Yeah,
so
you lose a lot of the magic for sure.
yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. I just wish it can be combined a little of both.
So the instructor, I forget his name in Special Needs Revolt, who kind of sets Billy Badass on his quest. When his head explodes when he's shot by the police, was that a mixture of the effects or was that entirely digital? Because it looked great.
It was digital. The guy who did a lot of the visual effects in the film was Chris Cosgrave from Buffalo, like the head blowing up
Hmm.
and the car flipping in the air. Um, Mike Boas did some of the digital effects too in the film, to fix some things up and stuff. But one thing I wish I could have worked out. Two things actually I wish could have been changed when Fartbomb is killing the guards in the institution is when he rips the guard's arm off. I wish we could have seen blood coming out of it, out of
Yeah.
his stuff. That's what I really wish would have worked out. And also, when the head gets punched, it would have actually gotten crushed. But I was told by John Vincent, who was working on that effect, that it would have taken a long time to make it smush in, that effect. So,
And really, you only get like one try at that. So I think your method
yeah,
was probably like the best. And that's one of those things that as a director, you kind of just have to pick and choose your battles, right? Like compromise, basically.
right.
Yeah. So you've mentioned your influences earlier, but you said that two of your early influences were the original Nutty Professor and George Romero's Dawn of the Dead. Both of those movies have somewhat controversial remakes, so I'm just curious what you think of those two. The remake, the Eddie Murphy Nutty Professor, and the Zack Snyder Dawn of the Dead.
I don't like the Zack Snyder Dawn of the Dead. I wasn't a fan of it. And the remake of The Nutty Professor, that's okay. I like it. It's good. I mean, I think just like with Willy Wonka and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, they're their own take, versions of the based off the book, the novel, and I kind of feel the same way about the Toxic Avenger.
Yep.
I mean, I don't, I don't with that one, the way it was done, the reimagining of the Toxic Avenger, it didn't bother me so much. I mean, it's its own version, own story. So in general, I wish people came up with their own ideas more than making their own remaking the films of the past. Now, however, if the original was really crappy or not really that good, because or really bad, like in my opinion, I thought the remake of The Last House on the Left was good because I didn't really like the original.
Okay.
So in my opinion, if it's a really bad original film, the original is really crappy, then I think the remake could do it justice if that's done right.
Yeah, most definitely. I can agree with that. I mean, well, classic example is John Carpenter's The Thing, right? He remade a film
Mm-hmm.
from the 1950s that was just okay, and then he turned it into
Right.
a modern horror masterpiece. So, yeah, I definitely
Right.
can see what you're saying there. All right, I've got one more question for you before we end this interview, but I just wanted to say thanks so much for taking the time to speak with me. And I wanted to say thank you for making films that are fun and showcase people with disabilities in such a positive way. Um, so my last question for you is, what would you say to somebody who wants this career path but is afraid that their disability would hold them back?
I would say all you can do is try. You just have to go out there and try to do it. Like one of my goals is to I'm working with some animator to do a fan film. Well, yeah, a fan film of Has Been Hotel because I'm a huge fan of that animated show and Hell of a Boss, and
Mhm.
I thought it'd be cool if there was an original character I could come up with, and it's basically a 4 minute music video of Here to Stay by Corn, but done in my own creativity with lyrics and stuff and some people I know already did the music and lyrics. So, and basically what I want to do with that is I want to try to show it, on social media, tag Vivian Madreno with that video when it's done in hopes that I can start a rapport, kind of communication with her
Yeah.
and move on to bigger things. So basically all you have to do is try.
Okay. No, that's good. That's very pertinent. Well, thank you so much for your time. And do you have anything that you're currently working on? I know you mentioned Down of the Dead, but that's still in kind of pre-production. Is there anything that you want to let our admittedly pretty small audience know that you're working on?
Um, I worked on a story treatment for a film. Well, I want it to be made into a film. It's called Wrong Town, a social commentary. It's basically 2000 Maniacs meets or Rob Zombie's House of a Thousand Corpses. I mean, or whatever in a way, but with a social commentary in it, political social commentary. And what I want to do with the story treatment, have that made into a script, and with that script made into, try to get it made into a graphic novel, because I don't think it's possible for me right now to get that movie made with the how much of a big budget it's going to be.
Hmm.
And I think if I have it as a graphic novel and people see it, maybe it could be made for 3 million or $4 million. We'll
Okay.
see.
Yeah, I understand. All right. Well, thank you once again for all of your time. And if you like this interview and you guys want to see more, just go ahead and let us know. But thank you once again to Adrian Esposito. And check out Special Needs Revolt and Clown in the Woods. All right. Thanks, guys.